Hello and welcome to Weekly Open. I'm Brian here with Josh, Luke, Don. We'll get to that in just a second. First, I want to tell you about FTX. They're our partners. Go to weeklyopen.com/FTX. Make a trade there today. You can go directly from one asset to the other. Liquidity is getting better and better, even for U.S. folks. FTX US been killing it with that ad campaign with the NFL, Sunday Night Football, and all that every time. It's pretty fun. You get yield on your assets as well. You get, what is it, something? 5% beyond $10,000, 8% for your first $10,000 yield. Thanks to FTX, of course, you can track your portfolio like you've known and loved since 2014. Weeklyopen.com/FTX. Josh, you're on top. How you doing, bud?
Doing well. I still think we're going to survive here despite legacy looking really, really bad. We'll talk about that. I haven't looked at the DXY today, but that's also something to watch. Just really banking on seasonality here.
Okay. Don, how are you, bud?
Good. I mean,
we're looking at your chart where there's a fresh new green line of support. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of green now. Started running out of green lines, but now we have a bunch. I mean, looking decent, right? Compared to how the traditional markets look, this is a treat for the eyes. So,
yeah.
Luke,
what's up, dude?
Doing all right, man. I'm in the middle of moving apartments and getting ready for a trip to the Middle East. So I have looked at less charts, and I'm curious to see what you guys are looking at in legacy and what the week holds for us.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. And by the way, Josh, also maybe worth noting, stocks down, crypto down, dollar down. So there's not dollar strength. It's just down only this morning. I think I still like my idea for where the dollar stops, which is basically now, which should mean that it's possible that we get a little tailwind in stocks sooner than later, maybe with the rotation. But if the dollar decides to just be rangy again, that doesn't seem like terribly bearish stocks. So we'll see. I don't know. It's a little too early in the show to just be breaking out the Dixie, so I feel bad. Don, do you?
Well, there's just so much random stuff in China and the U.S. Lots of regulatory stuff, lots of macro stuff, and it's like nothing's correlating like it should. And so, what do you even look at? You know?
Yeah.
We just stay in our lane here and focus on crypto stuff.
Probably. Don, you want to give us the rundown? What Bitcoin's looking like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, high time frame wise, it still looks good. I think we closed about 45, which was kind of the thing I wanted to watch in general. Like as long as we were trading below 45, it was kind of looking meh. Now that we're back above it, even though the traditional markets are kind of nuking, is a really good sign in my opinion. And I mean, I only have one resistance left, right, which is 49. Like anything above 50, basically, I'm gonna judge on relative strength and in general on momentum rather than support resistance lines. I don't think like the 60K area here on the weekly basis is too strong resistance anymore. So if you go back up there, I mean, probably not gonna do much. So for me, like this is the last area where you can really technically trade. Everything above there is just a momentum play. And I'd like to make that momentum play to the upside. But if we start losing 45 again, I think then it looks incredibly weak. And then we could roll over and fuck off. It's just right now, like that's a really good first sign on the weekly. And then if you look at the daily time frame, we had like a massive rally off of support that kind of reminds me of what we had back at 10K, where we just had like an iron floor. Everything kind of looked relatively bad. And then Sailor just stepped in and kept buying everything. And it just went up. And it kind of felt the same way in here, where it's like, I was seeing absorption coming in and like the support got hit like 1 million times and didn't break, which is really good. And then the moment you started breaking above 42, that's just a good signal that you're probably gonna get like continuation to the upside. So right now for me, still bullish. Looks like it wants to head higher. So I mean, I'm just not looking to sell. and that's going to maintain like that stance that I have. I'm going to maintain unless we start losing like the support down here. I think at that point it would start looking really bad again. But I mean, that's quite a bit away. And I think like right now, the only weakness we're really getting is from the stock markets. And then the strength we're getting is just crypto native, which is really good. So that's something you want to be seeing, I think. Obviously, still going to take a shit if the SPX just mega dumps. But I mean, assuming that is always a little bit much, I think.
Yeah. So you're giving it $1,000 cushion or so below the primary support line.
Yeah, I mean, the daily support that we have here, I think that's like a dip area to buy. Like if we go to 46.4, if we wipe out here, I think that's a decent, like this one is a decent area to buy. 44 gets dangerous. Like you can buy that, like if it completely wicks, you can buy that and hope that it just wicks back up again. But if you spend any time down at like 44, I start getting scared. And because I don't want to trade back into like the low 40s. If you do that, then you have like, let's say we bleed out here and sit on this support again, then you start getting like, I don't think this will hold again. Because it's already done a monster task of holding this after like 5 tests. If it does it again, that's not going to hold. And then you don't really have much support until much lower. So for me,
then zero.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just how this market works, right? Like the moment you start breaking that one support that everyone looks at, like everyone gets liquidated, a bunch of people start panicking, you wick to like super low areas, which I mean, I have no problem with, right? Like let's say this breaks down here, wicks to 23 and goes immediately up back to 32 and then starts grinding up. I'm totally down for that, right? But in general, right now it looks like strength, so I wouldn't expect that.
Luke, what day is the Dubai event?
That's October 16th, but I imagine most crypto Twitter people will be getting there next week.
Okay.
So
I'm bearish. I'm bearish during that event because it seems like every significant crypto event we just die. So that's just, I know that's a highly technical. Real quick, Don, to your point on the 45 line, that's also kind of the line I've continuously pointed to, and it's also where our like moving averages and everything are. So your levels and my levels coming at it from kind of different styles end up similar places. That always gives me nice confluence, like when multiple systems kind of point to the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm going to say about that support line, right?
Yeah, you're going to talk some cloud action, and I want to hear it, but I better change my settings on sharing.
No, I was going to say inverted head and shoulders. Like if we dip down, is that the daily support level?
Oh yeah, the little mini one.
I'm all for it because
that looks nice.
If we do, then yeah, I mean, let's go. I don't think there's anything to fear other than lower lows. Like honestly, anything is perfectly acceptable. We could easily just moonshot from here too. Like I'm not bearish this quarter until we break that low at what is that 40K?
Yeah.
Like let it do its thing. Cloud looks good.
Dude,
MAs look good.
The ETF discussion is hot right now.
Well, that's the other thing. That's the like white swan, I guess.
Yeah, white swan. I like that. I like that term.
Just any regulatory uncertainty, but in this case, the good direction for us.
Yeah. I'm curious what you guys think the upside surprise would be there if an ETF was announced. I remember talking to Ari Paul 1 or 2 years ago, and we were discussing on a show, and he said, the day it gets announced, he would expect roughly, and this is a big estimate, but he said roughly like 50% pop in that day or the following days. Now, obviously, Bitcoin's a lot higher. It's probably like 3x higher. But just based on that announcement, like that would be massive. Whether or not it corrects some of that after, who knows? But like, what do you guys think Bitcoin would actually do if an ETF got announced? Like how high would we pop?
I mean, 50% is a lot for a single
day.
Well,
we were way back. Yeah. We were like, Bitcoin was like 10K back then.
No, I think right now it would make a huge difference. Like with like the market at an inflection point right now, let's say it comes out tomorrow, right? I think we go to like 60 and then I don't think stop there. I think just grind up. So, yeah. I mean, I think that'd be massively bullish, and then it's probably not like a 50% pop in a day, but like
in a week.
Yeah. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't like 30, 40, 50% in a week, and then the following week being green as well. It wouldn't make sense to be bearish into news like that. And I think a bunch of people would start feeling that this market is much more legitimate than they thought. And maybe some people already have money in, but kind of need an event like that to kind of put in more. So I think we could do big movement to the upside.
What's funny about that with Ari, Luke, is I think he's changed his stance on that a bit, because he was used as a reply in a conversation about this morning.
Yeah.
I was talking to Bobby about the ETF, because all the futures ETFs are like totally alive and all the physical backed ones are not.
Right.
So my point, because Dan, I think his name's Dan, right? Robustus. Anyway, he's saying it wouldn't be as big of a deal, and pointed to Ari saying a Bitcoin futures ETF isn't that important. We already have Bitcoin ETFs around the world and lots of other easy ways for institutions to access marginal fundamentally. I very much disagree with that. Like, a lot of stuff, GBTC is just a typical security, like buying an individual stock, and it's also listed OTC. It's not like NASDAQ or something, you know? So kind of like within crypto, there's like lists or certain places where things are tradable, depending on how big they are, how, you know, kind of trusted they are, what access you have to them. And there's a lot of downsides to GBTC and other like securities-based physical holdings of Bitcoin that make them pretty difficult to access, say in like a 401k, even self-directed. Whereas pretty much any self-directed 401k plan is going to give you access to like ETFs and mutual funds. And this would allow Bitcoin to be wrapped up and packaged in a whole lot of different types of products, one, and then secondarily allow it to just have general access to like retail flows where people actually have their money, like in their retirement accounts. A lot of people, like, they might have $100,000 in their 401k, but they have like $2,000 liquid in real life to like go buy on Coinbase. And I think it opens up massive retail flows in an ETF, even beyond like GBTC and stuff. That's for Americans. I realize like the Canadian products and the British products and all these have like already come out, but I think the narrative potential is massive for a Bitcoin ETF still. I don't downplay that personally, but I don't know. What do y'all think?
I mean, I think like in general, like even I don't think it would matter much like how many people get onboarded, like not in the short term. I think it's just like the narrative shift.
Right.
That would matter a lot in the short term, right? Yeah. I think like so many people have been waiting for it, and so many people have been waiting for it so long that they've kind of just said, okay, it's probably not going to come out, that it would make a big just shift in how people think about it. Not even like, it wouldn't even have to be like buying pressure coming from those, like from the ETFs. It's just like, just in general, like the news, the headlines, I think everything would just kind of shift a little bit more positively, but I mean,
also,
we'll see.
This is a lazy way to do things, but it's worked for me historically, which is, what would I do, right? Like, so if you ask yourself, like, what would I do? And then just apply it to more people. Sometimes that could get you in trouble, but it does. Like, I have accounts where I would be able to buy if it was in an ETF, but I can't while it's in GBTC. And I have smaller accounts where I can buy GBTC, but even then I'm like, sucker's at a negative 17%. Premium, so that therefore a discount, and then also it's a 2% fee per year. A very low fee futures driven ETF that's instantly arbitrageable, if that's a word, is highly advantageous, and I would love to hold that relative to GBTC.
Yeah, I think there's two things there as well. Like, when I try to rank news, I can't think of a more bullish event. And I know there's some people saying, you know, ETF, we don't need an ETF, hold your own keys, all that stuff. But in all honesty, like, I cannot think of a more positive catalyst. Like, Michael Saylor could announce more Bitcoin. It doesn't do too much. Maybe like Apple buying Bitcoin with their balance sheet, maybe. But like, if you had to rank bullish catalysts for Bitcoin, I think ETF is number one on that list. So like, what is the most bullish catalyst ever for Bitcoin do? You know, regardless of whether or not you think it's positive, I think overall it's positive. And then Ledger, I think you're spot on. Like, I kind of never thought of it like that. If someone has 150K, but they only have like 10K of play money, 10K of the play money is usually what they're buying crypto with. Like, the other 100K that's in stocks and stuff, if all of a sudden that was opened up to Bitcoin, I know like all of us crypto native people are used to that play money portion being a lot bigger than the real life money thing. But for the average person, it's the opposite.
Yeah, it took a lot of time in the market for us to have our play money turn into like more than play money.
Yeah.
Like I have friends in real life. I saw a friend, classic, right? Talking crypto with another dad at soccer this last weekend. And, you know, very typical thing for normal people to do is they tell you exactly how much they put in, right? It's like, yeah, I put in like, I don't know, $700 years ago and now it's 3,000. And that's not life-changing money for this person. You know, this is a well-off, you know, person, and they probably have mid six figures in retirement accounts. So they might ape like 50K or 100K in their like retirement account. And that's just a different ballgame than the retail flows through your, you know, mobile apps.
Yeah.
One other thing that I have thought about, this is the other side of it, right, is if it's based on futures, I imagine it's going to be like CME based futures, and that's a cash market. So is it bearish that it doesn't create the like black hole like, GBTC does, where that's physical Bitcoin going down the like never to be found again black hole, whereas this is all just cash based stuff.
I mean, it paves the way for a real one, number one, and like we've already talked about, it's just a narrative thing. I don't think it's like short term. I think it's going to be a bigger deal than long term for the futures thing, just because it shifts the narrative. But I agree, like it's not going to be a black hole. I don't know, but all the money is in futures. Like the legacy money is the futures products, right?
Yeah.
What is this basis for saying like I'm much more comfortable with a futures based ETF? What's that? What is the basis for that?
Well, when the SEC when they say that,
yeah,
I really don't know.
I think it's because it's our market and it's regulated versus like the spot markets, which in their mind are the wild, wild west still.
Even though it's based on the same thing, like the futures price should be very similar to the spot price.
Yeah, I think there's probably an easier way for them to track what's legit and what's not. And they're in their mind, it's like these shadowy supercoders that are controlling 99% of the Bitcoin. God, these Chinese Bitcoins they're offloading. That's what they think in their mind.
Shadowy supercoders. Gosh.
Yeah.
Is that a Halloween outfit yet? Can you be one of those? How do you dress
We'll
up?
see it on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody will.
Yep.
What other ETF thoughts y'all have, or have we like thrown that out there?
I mean, I just saw Suzu's tweet. I didn't really know what sparked everyone starting to believe it was much more reality. That was the tweet I retweeted, and I barely even looked at it because I wasn't looking at the market too much. Was there new news that made it seem more likely that you guys saw?
I think something came across Bloomberg. That's what Bobby's tweet was. Yeah, so Eric, whoever this is, Balkunas, this was a couple days ago actually, so I don't know. They've kicked the can on the Bitcoin ETF approval, but the Futures Act 1940, which Gary Gensler loves, so those are very alive and likely. So they're actually putting the approval odds at 75% for October.
There we go.
So that's a very high odds percentage. On the other side of this, old Frankie Scoops has said very unlikely for this year. So like, I don't know if Frank's digging his heels in or if he's changing his opinion because it's the futures based stuff, but I don't know if these are potential approval dates, that's what it says, or if it's like deadlines for responding, because you know how like there's a deadline and then a week before they're like, no. And that always causes Bitcoin to dump and die again. So I don't know if that's where these dates come from, but yeah, they span between October 18th and November 1st. For purposes of the simulation, I would love for this to occur, Luke, while y'all are in Dubai.
Yeah, I mean,
approval Dubai party.
That's just the most crypto thing ever to happen. So it probably
and that's
will.
always what happens. Like always, the dumbest stuff happens. So.
Yep.
I mean, with my history, I think like it's probably going to be negative, because every time I'm like at any convention whatsoever, like some hilariously bad news comes out and the entire market vanishes. And I'm just like sitting there and I never take anything that I can, like I never take my trading setup with me. So I'm just sitting there being like, fuck, can't do anything. Is what it is.
Sitting there drinking champagne, shouting with people and watching your net worth nuke.
Yep. It go down like 50%, done it before.
Yep.
So I think the big thing with this stuff is have a plan, like have the size picked out, have the exchange picked out, know exactly what you're going to do when the news hits, because it's probably going to have some asymmetric stuff in the beginning. This is all like a big if, right? But just be ready, right? You don't want to see the news, him and haw about it. You want to see the news, have an action plan already picked out, exactly what you're going to do, and just execute, right? Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. But I think having feelings one way about it or the other is definitely what you need to be doing.
Right.
Because that's huge. Like the news is going to do something like up or down, right? We all think it's positive or it's going to be positive. And I think most of us would trade it accordingly.
So here's the big question then. Let's assume it comes out. Let's assume Bitcoin carries a bid at a bare minimum. Dominance. Bottom in?
Yeah, I mean, dominance is stupid anyway, but bottom would have to be in that day. I mean, that's going to double you out. What's the 50% retracement of that? Like 52%?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if it can go that high, though.
I don't think alts are going to necessarily suffer
right.
on a USD basis, but obviously on a BTC basis, they will. If anything, ETH would probably go along with BTC.
Yeah.
Right.
People just say, oh, that's coming next.
Yeah. That narrative would happen quick.
Josh, I love that narrative so much.
I think ETH would actually start dumping at first, and then people would buy it up and be like, this is going to be next. But yeah, end result is the same.
50% narrative would take dominance to 50, or 50% retrace would take dominance to 57.
Damn.
I'm always going to be bearish on Bitcoin dominance, like on that chart specifically, because I mean, it's such a stupid thing that's always going to trend down, right? Like altcoins would have to go to zero for it to kind of actually start going up. Isn't even like
how do you not love this chart?
there's like stable coins in there too, right? Like
yeah,
which makes it bad. It's such a problematic chart from a design perspective, but it doesn't make it less used.
Yeah, I mean, it's used so much as actually like you can actually do TA on it from time to time. It's just
I do. Like I look at this and I think if you have dominance, you could have a 30. That was about a 30% move up. So like you could have a 35% move to get to here, which is a weekly 200 week moving average, and then it's also like slams into this like kind of prior level that it broke down from with this is March 2021. So yeah, I mean, like this is the alternate layer one scramble basically, where all those made up a lot of room. So I could totally see something like this where everything floats sideways and Bitcoin goes up a lot. The real question is, does ETH kind of get lumped in as a major? Like are Bitcoin and ETH, or did they run simultaneously now instead of ETH going into the altcoin bucket?
Well, ETH-BTC had a good move yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look at the chart, but
yeah. Well, no, it was 2 days ago.
It's already like retraced half of it.
Yeah, but it's still
the dominance conversation.
It's in such a tight range. Like ETH-BTC is I think ETH-BTC is ready to do something. My personal current bet, now this probably goes out the window with the ETF. My current bet is actually that ETH-BTC goes ballistic. But I could imagine. So if that was a weekly chart I was showing. So if it does nothing until the ETF approval, I could see a world where it like tanks, like Bitcoin goes ham, and then it just turbo bounces and ETH gets a massive bid off of that. If I don't care what happens as long as it's tradable. I just want it to be tradable.
I mean, if you want to make a comparison, I think like if we get an ETF for Bitcoin, right? And that's a big if. I think if you want to make a comparison, you look at this, you look at this, you look at this. and then you look at Moon, whatever. And I think that's probably going to be the case if we get an ETF.
That would be awesome.
Sure.
Like I
own a ton
don't
of
see a
ETH,
world.
so.
Yeah, I don't think I see a world in which ETH does well if Bitcoin gets an ETF, like ETH BTC does well. I think that's like almost always going to dump into that announcement and after the announcement. It's going to get overdumped, and then people are going to realize, okay, wait, this is actually dumb. This is probably going to be next, and it has like more upside because it's smaller than Bitcoin and people like it more and blah, blah, blah. And then you probably get like a big leg up. I think that would be like the most bullish outcome for ETH.
As Josh and I talked about significantly on our Friday show, the best case scenario is that they don't move together, because from a trader's perspective, you get to ride it twice as long as the market is overall bullish, because there's, in my mind, no chance that Bitcoin moons or ETH moons and then the other one doesn't go, you know? So like if you can get the move twice and you actually, you know, adjust to the move occurring, then that is so very bullish for your portfolio. So I hope they don't move together, even though I think it's possible sans ETF that they do move together. With ETF, that actually gives a perfect catalyst for it, even though it's counter to what I've talked about, thinking Ethereum looks very good and should outperform, yada, yada. I would love to see what happened back there. Don, if you point back to that one, or it consolidated, and then, you know, Bitcoin just took over in that move. That's all that was. That was that fall 2017. Bitcoin took over in that setup. And to a smaller degree, the same thing happened in fall 2020. Remember, after DeFi summer, September to January, Bitcoin went bananas. In 2020, and the same stuff happens over and over again in this market. So I guess it could be that way, right? Like Q4 is for Bitcoin. Josh, is that similar to what your like calendar year stuff always shows?
Yeah, I mean, ETH BTC's never done well in Q4 ever. ETH has never outperformed BTC in Q4. So if we get an ETF, that's right on the money, right? Like that's the expectation. It's not going to take that to beat ETH, I don't think, but that would seal the deal, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Potatoes in the chat said, I finally caught up live after watching on 2x speed, and now you all sound drunk and stupid.
It's 11 a.m. on a Monday, man. Come on.
I hate listening to myself at 1x, so I don't blame you if you just press pause and wait for 2x again, Mr. Potatoes. Luke, you had anything to add on the ETH BTC stuff?
Nothing really on the ETH BTC, but I think you know, if December ETF or not, what's just been true over the past 3 or 6 months is like the trades that work when Bitcoin dumps are going to be layer ones. That continues to work. The trade that works when Bitcoin pumps continue to be layer ones. And like Bitcoin dominance is, you guys have already mentioned it, it's just so skewed because it has tens of thousands of these other random coins. But like Bitcoin would probably do very well. ETH would probably take a second to catch up. And then all the exciting trades happening right now would continue to be the best trades. Like I just don't see that changing. It's the narrative would very quickly switch to, oh, if Bitcoin can do that, wow, you know, then all of crypto is here to stay. So I don't know. It would be great if we could trade the Bitcoin move, and then, as you guys said, have a second chance to trade everything else.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have to start our dive into everything else with the group trade that everybody on this call has made money on, and therefore is probably going to groundhog or whatever you call it, like full retrace.
Yep.
Tezos broke out above $7, which was its like weekly it had
all-time high, basically.
Yeah, basically all-time high. It looks like when it listed on Coinbase, it went to $10 for like 2 seconds back in 2017. But after a long just kind of grind and wind up, we all entered within the same like 2 weeks of candles. And now it's in near price exploration and on the breakout. So are we going to see, are we all going to win? Are we all going to make it? Or is this about to fake out on us and we die?
The problem with charts like Tezos, if you zoom way out, it's never had like an extended bullish move.
They always get faded. It's like BAT. You remember BAT?
Yeah, it has moments where it does super well, but so it's hard to like establish that, I think. I don't know if there's some other underlying reason, like people unstaking or whatever. I don't even know. Unlocks in the protocol or whatever.
I think it's like scarred bag holders, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it's definitely that, because you're seeing a ton of resistance at all-time highs, which you're going to see anyway from people like that, but especially Tezos, where they've seen everything else like go to infinity without them, basically.
And they're still holding their like ICO coins or whatever.
Scarred bag holders, and also it's people like, I remember even on last week's call, we were all like, yeah, we're bullish, but God, we're long Tezos. I imagine it's a lot of people that are like, hold on, how high can this thing go? Okay, I got to sell some.
So Don, we're getting to your first BTC relative resistance here. Huh?
Yep. I mean, if you're like a Tezos hater and only took it because of the bullish setup, I think that's where you start selling. I'm not. I think like if you already make this bet, right, it might make it like, make it grand or make it not at all, because I mean it's fucking Tezos.
I really like that red line, that bunch,
like this one.
I like that as like a real resistance. I think the one that it's at now is like one of those bullish resistances, you know. You just gotta churn around in there for a bit, and then you have a chance for more.
I mean, I honestly think like, even like disregarding the Bitcoin pair, right? You look at Sol and you see like a rally from $47 all the way to 200, right? And you look at Tezos, which broke the all-time high, and then you want to take profit like 20% above, basically. It makes no sense to me. Like if you want to play this, and I mean, we're all playing it, might as well play it to like $20.
I agree. I mean, if you're in profit, what are you afraid of, right? It's like, if it goes against you, who cares? Like, honestly,
I'm a rotator.
Like, maybe
I need to perfect.
You've got,
I need to perfect the rotations. It's a mental
got
disease.
that size in there, but
I mean, I'm gonna be in it for like at least 15 to 20.
I want to be in it for the long haul, baby.
Yeah, and then if it
15
dumps,
to
it
20.
dumps. I'll give back every single cent. I don't care.
I would be euphoric at 15 to 20. The ETH relative pair is also hitting a significant level that goes back to early 2019. Like, it was the floor in 2019. It was the resistant, or it finally broke it and then really fell off of that same level April 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So is it going to just like continue mediocrity and, you know, quit the rotation? There was a lot of volume here though. So this is one of those where I could totally imagine it kind of spanning back that gap. And that would be on that relative basis. That's 200%. That's like Tezos to freaking $30. So like, that's a way more fun trade.
Yeah. I mean, look at this. Even at this chart,
I mean, that could invert head and
just
shoulders
fucking-
too. Like,
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was just drawing
Easy.
up. Like the inverse
Yeah.
head and shoulders. Like this is exactly what I meant. So it's
That's
like
beautiful.
You can easily make that argument.
yeah, if you want to wait or just add some horizontal. I mean, this stuff, I say inverted head and shoulders all the time because it happens all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just market structure basically starts breaking and then it moves. And
It's the same way, like Don was saying, if we hit a certain level on Bitcoin again, don't expect it to hold. Anytime you have a completed head and shoulders, you're marking like a 1, 2, third touch at a bare minimum on a macro thing. So it makes it less likely to hold.
And that could be a 1 year head and shoulders from January to January.
and I mean, the narrative is perfect for it. I mean, the only thing holding it back is that it's Tezos, right? So it's like,
Okay.
I mean,
So for the rotators of us, we wait for it to smack that line, then you switch it to BTC for the ETF, right? Over the next week or two, Tezos pumps above $10, and then Tezos kind of floats, right?
you have a mental illness, my friend.
I know. I'm a troubled being. I must rotate. I'm a rotator. So you hold Bitcoin until the end of the year, and then I'm also a taxor. So January 1st, we rotate back to Tezos for the turbo moon from 10 to 30, and you missed nothing. Bitcoin's at six figures, Tezos to 30, bam,
Tezos to 100.
100. Sure, why not?
You know what's interesting about Tezos? If you were to look at all the layer ones so far in October, it's only been 4 days, but we are starting to already see some leaders. If you had all the layer ones, so things like Luna, things like Solana, Phantom, Dot, Atom, Cardano, and AVAX, Tezos is on top at about 35% already for October. The closest thing is Luna at 20%.
Yeah,
so,
people will get upset with us if we don't talk about Luna. Somebody said it already broke out. They've actually been moving in a near lockstep. And I think Tezos has probably moved a little faster on a daily chart. But I think Luna is obviously in more clear price exploration on the weekly. But the thing is, these Luna people are in no pain whatsoever, right? Like they're euphoric. And the relative trade, in my mind, is like better value for Tezos.
I agree.
It's cheaper. It's saving the planet too. I mean, that's why I'm in Tezos.
Like I like Luna, but there is no chance that I'm buying someone else's. I can't calculate how many X's. Like, this thing was on Binance and set a multi-week floor at 30 cents. So like, I don't want to buy someone else who's up 15,000%. That's what that move is, from plenty of time to fill your bags in 2020 and up this much. I'm not buying their bag. I would only buy a chart like this on extreme weakness.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like the big problem, sorry, Josh.
No, you're good.
The big problem with it is that like, it's really hard to find a good setup on it. Like with Tezos, the big advantage was that like this was like a straightforward, just kind of like pull back into range high, right? On the Bitcoin pair, and on the USD pair was basically a play on the new all-time high. Like whenever you have that, it's really easy to just kind of buy it and you know when to get out. And look at Luna, and I mean, if you're in from way lower, that's easy to say, right? Okay, fucking moon it. But like, where the fuck do you buy this, right?
Down 50% is where you buy it, at that red line.
Yeah, like if this dumps like 60% and you buy into that box, I mean, that's
still
good.
Bullish.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? And then if you buy here, your invalidation has to be below that red box, right? And that's basically all your money gone. And it's like, what the fuck do you do with that? You can't really.
And that's also how like you create FOMO in a coin. So it could totally still keep going up. It's not for me. Like people get upset sometimes when you're like not willing to buy their bags because you say it's not for me. Otherwise, the only way to play something like this would essentially be much lower time frame, where you're going to have obviously paper hands, right? Because your risk profile is much smaller. So you buy on a day like today, or you buy retest and 43 to 45. Let's say you get some kind of entry in there, but you cut that sucker below 42, 42.50, something like that. Like you have a very tight stop, and then you're probably going to get stopped because that's what happens when you're trading on lower time frames.
What's the upside potential? Like 50, 100?
Yeah,
what multiple do you have? That's
a very low time frame trade. I mean, I'm gonna pigeon brain this again, but like put a fib on the like range high, range low in price exploration. Your 1.618 is $54. So, what is that upside? Let's say you market bought it right now and you play it to there. That's a 16% move. No thanks. Not playing 16% moves when the downside for like staying bullish is down 60%. Therefore, you have to cut it at like 42 or something. So, and you're just going to get stopped out. So that's a trade. That's more like if you're trading with size on margin or something, maybe you could play that. I'm not looking for that from a like macro spot holdings position.
Congrats to Luna holders though, man. That thing it's a beast. It's done really well.
I'm very happy for them. I'm just not buying their bags.
Yeah, I agree. I think people who are still bullish on it are setting themselves up for some disappointment. Like, yeah, it'll keep going. It'll do well. But if you're a rotator, what are you doing? At the very least, just keep your initial investment in there, take everything else out, put it in anything else literally, and Bob's your uncle. Away you go, right?
Yeah.
Like everything doesn't need to be ETH and BTC where it goes to like 25x in a 2 months time, right? Like I think people see these outsized returns in the large caps and they just expect it like overnight in these low caps, and then they lose their mind when people are like, no, use some risk potential, risk whatever aversion, and clean it up a little bit here. And they're like, no, we're going to infinity. This is it. And it's just like, okay, I don't want to be in that trade with you, but have fun, you know?
So I want to look at a chart that we haven't talked about in a while, and maybe this will mark the bottom, but we deserve a little bit of a pat on the back for ourselves here, which is Doge relative to BTC is essentially following the exact plan that we highlighted to the degree that it's now facing resistance again in a nasty looking way. Like that was where it consolidated back in April, and the way that we talked about pop and bleed, I could see this again, like popping, people getting excited, and then I would expect it to die out after a 20% move or so, whatever that percentage is.
Yep.
No plan changing here, but capital rotation, Bitcoin ETF, same concept. I imagine a lot of the Robinhood Doge money might like decide to capitulate this if Bitcoin starts moving. So just another one to keep in mind. Well,
Doge is a great example of everything we're just talking about with Terra Luna, whatever the hell it is. Like you're up 1 billion%, guys. Like, what are you doing? Take profit, go move somewhere else, right? Why stay in this and become a community member? You know, I don't understand it.
Especially with Dogecoin, right? We all know this is garbage, right? It's like, I mean, we all love Dogecoin. I mean, we love it when it's lower. We hate it when it's higher. But it's like, it's fucking Dogecoin. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, I agree. This is just going to play out like XRP. I've talked about it before. XRP in 2018 basically pop, and then like it does this million times, slowly starts bleeding out, has like bigger pops, smaller pops, but in general, like this is gonna go back to 200 sats, I think.
Yeah.
Which is still more than a 50% drop. So
it's a 60. Yeah. So on the dollar pair, it's still a 64% drop away from what was on the moon. Like 7 cents was Doge on the moon. And now it's a 65% drop from here, which is once again like under important moving averages. Horizontally looks very weak. However you want to look at it, it looks weak. And 7-8 cents is kind of the next shelf, and that's a 65% drop. So this thing could get absolutely torched relative to BTC, relative to USD. Now, you could look at this and say, okay, well, if it reclaims, I don't know, 26 cents, like then you have the everything is stupid, move to $1, cycle over. You know, like, to me, that's truly a cycle over indicator, is if Doge has that one last move to get massive liquidity for people.
Yeah, I think like Doge is not going to make a new all-time high this cycle on the Bitcoin pair. But I mean, if crypto as a whole goes completely nuts, I could see Doge go to $1. It's just, if it does that,
it's over.
I mean, you know that it's over. Yeah. Like in general, I think the crypto market as a whole, if you look at it in isolation, right? Because like the S&P can kind of fuck it up. If the S&P just mega dumps crypto, like all the setups, like nothing's gonna just scream, okay, that's gonna happen in crypto. Some people kind of like look at the chart, and then something like a black swan, like COVID crash happens, and they're like, this was obvious, right? Because this altcoin move, this and that way, that's bullshit, right? But in general, like in isolation, if you see like a Dogecoin massive pump because people like start getting like hyper risk on, hyper trash buying mode engaged kind of mode, then I think that's where you start topping out again for crypto as a whole. So like, let's say Dogecoin pumps from here to like 950 to 1K sats, just from nowhere basically, and then you see like a bunch of people write about it again. That's where you want to like start risking off massively. So in general, like having Dogecoin as a chart to watch makes a lot of sense, because you can kind of measure how dumb the market is. If Dogecoin's high up, the market is completely ridiculous, especially in a situation like this. And if it's low, I mean, everything's still fine. And right now, everything seems to be somewhat fine on the speculation side of things.
Can I point to another potential, like kind of complacency coin? And
please,
Luke, this might make you upset. I'm sorry.
Oh shit, XRP?
No,
it's going to be AXS.
Oh no, not Axis. I should look at that one too. Okay. But it was Solana versus ETH. It looks like it's at resistance. It could still do its thing. Maybe it'll just do like a whole bunch of sideways, kind of repeat this. But like, I don't feel super strong about Solana relative to ETH. Looking at this chart, it looks tired. That's what it looks like.
I would agree with that. I don't really have any Solana left. I'm okay with that. I add some Solana, but it's purely based on code because I miss so much of that move. So I'm okay with that.
Like maybe it sits in some kind of channel like that for a really long time, or maybe that's not the channel. Like maybe the channel's down here. But the point is, I don't know where that is, and this is not a comfy entry for me. So when people are like telling me I need to be in Solana, very similar type of argument, it could have a long consolidation versus the dollar. It could go to new highs. I think you have to wait for one of those to occur. Like this is no man's land. This is complacency shoulder potential land. So therefore, I either want the long consolidation and I buy it. I'm happy buying it at $160, 2 months from now, or you wait for the actual highs to occur and you FOMO, something like that. But it's a fine place to hold if you're a holder. It's not a great place to enter in my opinion.
Ledger, to add on to that, what's made a lot of these layer one trades so exciting is people can look at the relative valuation and say, okay, if this thing catches up to ETH, or if it's 10% of ETH, it can rise that much. I think Solana has now risen to the point where it's in that, 1 to 10 biggest coins by market cap slot, and everything just gets clogged up there. Like, how exciting is it for Solana to pump 2x again? And also, how tough is that to happen? It's like, even if you're a massive Solana bull, I know there's a lot of them on Twitter that think it is going to continue to eat into ETH's market share. It's like, okay, but should it be worth 20% of ETH's market share? Like, how big are people's bags once it becomes 20% of ETH's market share? It's like those people by necessity just kind of have to sell. So I think Solana, even though it can look good, it's struggling of like it's done too good. Like it kind of has to come back.
Turpy in the chat needs to check yourself, because I called this top right here and I called this bottom. So Mr. Last time Ledger said this, it went turbo. Check your facts. Yeah, so there, Luke, you mentioned Axes. I can't find it, but I heard it is
AXS.
Yeah, I can't find it in my watch list. I know I have it. Don, if you want to pull it up. I heard it went absolutely ballistic again.
So AXS finally it's actually wild how well they've executed. They finally, and this has been on the roadmap since I bought back in July. And when I talked to
Luke is very wealthy. Credit, Luke is so wealthy.
All credit goes to the Delphi guys. All credit goes to the Delphi guys. I cannot, even say it correctly how big of gigabrains they are. Not only that, they called Luna as well. But they solely were the ones who put this on my map. And the hour-long conversation is what convinced me to buy. And they said staking was going to come out in September. So up until now, all AXS that was generated from fees on that marketplace, it's the biggest NFT marketplace in the world. You would pay some of the fees in AXS, and it would go to the treasury. And until now, all that would just kind of sit on like their balance sheet or their treasury. It was locked up, and it was kind of creating this supply shock. And now some of that AXS is being paid out to people that want to stake. So you have the most used crypto app in the world, the most used NFT game in the world, whatever you want to call it, is now actually owned by people that hold AXS. If you want to earn revenues from people playing the game and people buying NFTs, you have AXS. You get paid out in AXS. So it happened. It worked. And I think the APY is pretty good. I haven't even looked at it. I'm not staking. So, but it worked. They executed. I don't know where it goes from here now. I mean, it's kind of blowing my mind. It's at 140,
but if you're earning income on it and you're happy with what you have in, like, fine,
Yeah.
And it's
the biggest crypto game in the world.
Yeah.
What a chart. Holy shit.
$4 to 140.
I mean,
I wish I was in at 4. I was not in at 4. 10 to 20 is where I got long.
That's still awesome. That's 10x, man. Gotta love those.
That's what all the Luna people want the chart to look like.
Yeah. Another relative trade, AVAX. Shout out JP for pointing to this at the literal top, September 25th. This chart got a little dicey looking. Not to say it's topped. It could actually be bottoming here. That could be support. But it's just not as clear of a trade setup. Also, the dollar trade on AVAX, basically just needs to get back above 75 to show that it can do the move to 100. Just a little dicier than some trades out there. I think it might be a buy, like 56 or something. When I felt that kind of you just felt the moves be a little slower. Like, I don't know if y'all trade any of the stuff on AVAX, but like the Joe token, like the bounce back was not quite as good as it was the other times. And I use that as kind of my signal that trade was a little dicier. Like, people made a lot of money and I made a lot of money. And I risked off, not fully, like I'm still farming some stuff, but like relative to ETH, and then I'm selling most of my rewards, I'm just paying attention. How does this look relative to ETH? How does this look relative to Bitcoin? Trade's not as exciting as it was, and it can be exciting again, but to me, it's not right now.
When are the incentives over? I haven't kept up with.
They last a really long time, which is also why it's like there's going to be good times to buy and bad times to buy. And when people like made a ton of money, as Joe went from 30 cents to $3 and $4, you know what I mean? Like, it's like maybe the inflation schedule of Joe starts to kick in and the farming's a little less attractive. That said, somebody said earlier, I don't know to verify this, but I think Aave just deployed for Avalanche Rush stuff. So like maybe that'll be a bullish catalyst on one or multiple coins there. Like when Aave deployed on Polygon, it was a huge deal. So maybe you'll see some positive flows. I just want to see the chart start to support those things. And I mean, like I said, until that, I like Ethereum, I like Bitcoin. I'm trying to be liquid, stick with the majors until the trade really presents itself.
Yeah. I thought AVAX would be a lot higher. It's not disappointing by any means, but it's like, I still think we would. I think so. I thought we would be higher by now. I
think so many of the flows went straight to the alts there. Like, I think a lot of AVAX, because you bridge over and you have AVAX as like your primary thing, and I think people were, when you're making a swap, you're making a swap from AVAX to something else, and I think a lot of the flows went into Joe and other stuff that just went turbo. I think that might have muted the AVAX move, but I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong, and I'm willing to get back in that trade. I'm willing to get back in any of these trades, but it just makes me a little nervous to look at the relative trades. You talk about the BTC ETF stuff. It just, I don't know. Yep. Maybe I'm being too careful right now, but I feel like we're due for this move in the majors.
I know we're an hour in, but something else to think about is the SEC Ripple stuff. Like that could have a big impact on all sorts of things as well. I don't know.
Basically, the temperature.
The odds on that.
Everything else being a security.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like people should cheer for it, right? Like cheer for XRP or like for Ripple. Otherwise, if they start losing, we have a problem. Basically, I think.
God, I don't want them to win though. Like it's a very similar case. No, I agree with you. Like it's probably the best move for crypto. Like if they can't win this XRP, like it's going to be a trouble elsewhere. And they might have just poked a bear with a lot too many resources, to win.
Yep.
Chart doesn't look bad. Chart looks like it's trying to price in winning, but I bet if they did win, it'd probably go to like $2 immediately.
Mm-hmm. I've actually read, like, I don't know, I've talked with a bunch of lawyers on this matter, and like they're very, very conflicted. Like I've talked with a bunch that are like, okay, they're probably going to win. And then I've talked like lately, I've heard more and more, okay, I think they're going to lose. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to end up. Going to be interesting.
If they lose, it'll set precedent for a lot of other like corporate entities with token stuff and whatever, and it'll be used. I think like that's what the SEC would take with them and say like, your turn. We took down the giant, even though theirs was one of the more egregious cases. Probably there's lots of egregious cases out there if you go make them. So I think it would probably tighten a lot of legal buttholes at like Coinbase or, places that have listed a lot of things that could get lumped in with XRP.
Yeah. Gonna be wild.
Yeah, it's gonna do something to the market, right? Like I think it's probably 50-50 or worse for Ripple. I don't know. Who the hell knows what Gary and company is gonna do eventually, but imagine like that plus the ETF. Plus we have all this China liquidity exiting the market. I know that's like a slow rolling train wreck, but Huobi, OKEx, all these Chinese exchanges are telling all of them they have to be actually really done by December. So that may limit upside because we don't have like the Chinese gamble or whatever in the market anymore. So that's also something to consider.
So the China news about DEXs is what made Uniswap finally go ballistic. I don't know if that's faded off, but I have this DeFi perp relative to ETH chart that Josh, you and I have talked about a lot. It's still basically telling you that the trade is there, but the buy signal is not. So like this, I don't know how many weeks kind of level. In my mind, this is basically the trade, and it's a difficult trade again to make because you could lose 20% to go if you cut it at new lows. But if you enter it, basically current levels, but when you get a signal, the upside is basically the top of the range, DeFi relative to ETH. None of these DeFi majors have really gone into price exploration topside, have they? Did Uniswap actually go to new highs? No, it didn't. Yeah, so even like the next trade for these is basically for them to go to new highs on a really, really, really long time frame because
I mean, that thing looks bottomy too. And something else we haven't talked about regulatory is DeFi and KYC AML stuff, or who the hell knows with the comp related 4% liquidity thing. I'd like, and Europe talking about in January having a crackdown on DeFi.
What was the question about comps stuff? You mean their like treasury bug?
No, not their bug. Just the product comp is offering that Coinbase tried to offer, and the SEC said no.
Well, comps is a security. We had them talk about that on Up Only. He was like, go look at the bottom. It is literally a security. It's like theirs is the most regulatory appropriate of all of those products.
That's fine, but until there's clarity on them as far as like punishment regarding wherever the hell, that's just another.
No, they already went through all of that. Like only accredited investors that know they're buying a security can even get in it. So like theirs is far, far more like rational for someone to enter than any of the other ones. Whereas Coinbase just didn't want to go through the steps to require all of that. Comp requires people to do that. Like it's like you're buying GBTC directly from Grayscale. It's very similar. And then they're deploying the funds within the DeFi ecosystem. Like I think theirs is really smart. Nevertheless, I do agree though, Josh, like all the yield stuff, whatever the Coinbase lending one, BlockFi, like there's got to be some clarity on those. But I think those are probably securities. I cannot not show this chart because I just happened to click over to it. This is like Degen Spartan laughing maniacally. Like Wi-Fi relative to ETH, it literally can't do anything. Like that is so bad. I don't know if I've ever seen a chart this bad.
That's game over right there.
Yeah, it looks like it wants to capitulate still, but to what?
Here's the relative to BTC one. Like this is making new lows, right? No doubt.
Jesus fuck. Even the USD chart looks completely trash.
Yeah. I mean, the yield aggregators don't look good from a token perspective. The valueless governance tokens are indeed maybe valueless.
But the range played out pretty nicely.
Yeah.
At least TA worked.
Sushi still looks like a Renko chart. Like, all green or all red. There's like no in between. Yeah, so DeFi stuff just is very... it's very ill-defined in my mind in terms of a trade setup.
Still lagging until the layer one trade stops.
Support? Does Wi-Fi support?
I don't want to buy it.
Probably not.
I look at it as a fall straight through.
Yeah,
it looks like
you
right?
buy it. I'll watch you. How about that?
You do this.
Don, I'd love that trade.
I mean, I'm not going to touch that support whatsoever. Like, even if it bounces, I don't give a shit. Like, this is something I never buy. But yeah, if it straight up falls through, loses like 50% of its value and then reclaims, I mean, then you get like a second leg or something.
Luke, can you describe your thesis about what you said? When the layer one trade stops, DeFi can move.
Yeah, I'm stealing a little bit of it from Split, but that's basically when DeFi stopped outperforming ETH. It's when everyone else wanted to punt on Solana, AVAX, Luna, and now all of us on Tezos. It's like it's a lot easier for VCs to pump those narratives and pump those coins. And it's like, imagine if you're building a DEX on AVAX is the best example. It's like, why would I buy Uniswap when I could buy Joe at a 1/100th of the valuation it's just such an easy narrative. It's like the risk reward makes so much sense. Even if Joe does horribly, it's like probably going to do just as bad as Uniswap. So once people stop believing, I guess, that layer ones can compete with ETH, then, what can you bet on ETH? You'll bet on DeFi. But right now it's like they're already in the multi-billions. Like, how attractive is that if you're a VC to be like, let's make a big bet on Uniswap. I think this could be bigger. It's like, okay, how much bigger can it be? And I'm not bearish on Uniswap at all. It's just like, how much bigger can they be? It's not as attractive to make bets on $1 billion things.
Yeah, and I mean, with ETH fees too, right? I mean, ETH fees just been so bad that it's so hard to kind of defend any kind of over-the-top bullishness on any protocols that run on ETH, because I mean, you can't really do anything if you can't pay for it.
Alternatively, the ones that deploy everywhere, I think, could end up being winners, but we're not seeing that yet either. Mm-hmm. Sushi and Aave, by far, the clearest examples of that. They don't look like absolute trash, but they are still just very range bound. And I don't know if the market's smart enough to give them better value because they're willing to deploy everywhere. And I think what would happen is so like the bin key, I guess, is whatever the Avalanche native borrowing and lending platform. If you start to see Aave overtake the native solutions, which are all just forks of ETH ones. So like if you see the ETH blue chips, whatever, start to dominate the other ecosystems, then I think you could see a markup cycle in these eventually. We're just not seeing it yet. That said, if I look at like Aave on a relative basis, say to ETH, it looks much more like punt capable to me, although this is a very tight punt.
That looks also game over to me.
For some reason I like it a little bit. I like it a little better than Wi-Fi, but maybe it's because it's on that floor. I don't know. Like until
there's regulatory clarity about lending and borrowing stuff in DeFi land, I just think you're gonna have a bad time.
Very clear levels here, guys. Very, very clear. Support. Just buy. Don't be afraid. Just buy. What's the worst can happen? It could. The next low is another 23% down on a relative.
I'd rather
basis.
buy Terra than that chart. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, the BTC chart looks similar to Sol before it took off. It's just I have like a different gut feeling about Aave than I have about Sol, because I mean, look at this. I can actually put them side by side. If you want any hopium, you'd look at this and be like, but Sol did it. Where's my Sol chart? Whatever. You can still draw this out.
So that thing,
right?
that kind of, yeah.
So that was Sol. This is Aave right now. And I have a feeling that this actually might just straight up dump out of it. But I mean, if it starts breaking this, right? I mean, that's at least some hopium there. You don't want to be like the guy that gets bearish into that if it starts breaking out and starts holding. It's the same thing that I said about Sol when it like, and I wish I had more original chart. I was like, if it breaks this like diagonal and the horizontal, it's gonna go. And I think it's the same thing here. Like if it breaks a diagonal and then breaks, I mean, probably this one, I wouldn't want to counter trade it. Like I would think it's just gonna go straight up. But until then, I mean, you're looking at a drop of what, like where's the next support on the Bitcoin relative pair?
Yeah, I know we're getting long on the show here, but I wanted to highlight a couple of low time frame things. Bitcoin starting to move, crypto bouncing kind of all over, seems directly correlated to a very dumpy stock market looking like it's trying to make a bottom for the day. We're doing that thing again where we start ticking with the stock market, but showing relative strength, which is very good. Stocks look like absolute doo-doo. Don has talked about this earlier this morning. I don't know if you talked about it on the show. Where the heck is I accidentally removed my moving averages. The 200-day moving average on the S&P is still a few percent away if it's going to do that trip all the way down. The Qs have not gotten to their 200-day moving average in all of COVID, really. The stock market looks quite weak, When the stock market bounces, supermoon for crypto. Do we agree on that?
Mm-hmm. Looks like it. I mean,
It's the only headwind we've had, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is impressive, really, because it's been the other way around for the down move, right? Crypto was weaker than the stock market pretty much after it has set its 60K top. And that has reversed. So that makes me hopeful that if the stock market bottoms, I think crypto is just going to get like a nice boost. And I mean, look at the recent lower time frames. I mean, you just got to compare the two. And it's like, crypto is so much stronger. So it's it's so easy to be bullish crypto when that happens, because you know that people are buying it no matter the S&P, like how the S&P looks. And once that bottoms, it's probably both just go again. So
yeah,
that's
sure.
Bullish.
There's the stock market stuff is very interesting too, because oil and energy stuff is going bananas. So there's a lot of weird rotation driven stuff in that market. I have this line on my monthly oil chart, and it's kind of like this multi-decade kind of line in the sand. It was the top in July 2018. It marked support several times. It was, I don't know, it's just a line that $75 barrel of oil. I feel like just nationally as well, we freak out when oil's above $75, and I think it's a really fun narrative for oil to go to zero, to have negative oil prices at the depths of the COVID dumps, and then go to infinity. Yep. It just makes way too much sense. So I feel obscene saying it, but I legit think we could see $140 oil. And that would come alongside massive popular revolt. And it would be really interesting from a narrative perspective. And the suppliers they can't get things out. They're having a hard time. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there. There's also a potential uranium trade out there that's interesting, very similar in concept, but the uranium producer companies are they look like altcoin charts. Let me see if I can find one.
That oil chart looks like Bitcoin did after the COVID crash,
doesn't it? And it looks like it's just ready to go.
Yeah.
So this one, it doesn't look that special here, but if I enjoy it when I put it in linear, because then it just looks like the dumbest altcoin charts, just infinite volume, just a tick above the floor, and what if just give me my 10x on some random uranium producer. I enjoy this trade setup, so I bought a bunch this morning, so I thought it was fun. We'll see. Doesn't really have.
What are you speculating on? Nuclear war?
No. So I heard somebody call me the uranium war. So this guy named Cuppy went on the Market Huddle, which is one of my favorite traditional market podcasts. They just don't take themselves too seriously. So he gave a pretty good argument, whereas the oil stuff gets so expensive because of the crackdown on we're going green at all costs, whatever. Green can't keep up. Oil now is kind of throttled. So the great compromise would essentially be nuclear, because green energy advocates and old energy advocates can all kind of get on board that nuclear works, it's cheap, it's affordable, whatever. And that's the way we can expand our energy usage in a way that's cleaner.
I like it.
So, and nuclear's had a lot of strangles on it, in Japan, in the U.S., and if a couple of these plants or whatever get turned on or whatever, it's an interesting narrative that I think could really work. And that uranium sector, it was like altcoins in 2018. There's just such contraction, and they were basically just shut off, waiting for prices to improve. like skeleton crews on these mines and stuff, because uranium was half the price of what it needed to be for them to actually do anything in profit. Anyway, so Cuppy talked about it as like one of his favorite trade setups. I think Lynn Alden also talked about it as being like one of the best risk reward trade setups of her career. She's very good at macro stuff in my mind. So yeah, I like it. I actually sold a little bit of Ethereum, ETH, in order to buy uranium crap this morning. So probably going to regret that, but I have enough Ethereum elsewhere.
I like the idea.
Yeah, BTC's ripping.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's ripping. Love it.
But we better stop talking before we.
All right.
Yeah, we don't want to ruin this.
All right, real quick, what are we looking for this week?
Moon and majors.
The moon and majors. That's what we're looking for.
Rotate all your alts while you still can. There's still time.
You can always rotate. Enjoy the rotation. Thanks for being with us. Go to weeklyopen.com/FTX. You can make a trade there today. Track your portfolio as you rotate from your altcoins to majors. You can do it on FTX. weeklyopen.com/FTX. Track your portfolio. Earn interest on your coins while you got them in there. Have fun. Download it today. Talk to you later.